is a word for this kind of behavior, and it's called projection.
Your perspective in New York, what do we know and what's the latest on this story?
Well, Andrew, the jaw-dropping development here is that the prosecutors in Arizona are denying New York's request to have the suspect in this murder case extradited to New York. Now, the way, as you know, extradition works is when a suspect is arrested in another state, the state in which the crime was committed can request that person be sent to them to face justice in that state. It's done for serious crimes, and certainly murder qualifies as a serious crime here. New York made the requests, but the prosecutor there said the reason why she is not granting it is because of the way the Manhattan District Attorney here in New York handles cases involving violent criminals.
Not be agreeing to extradition.
A simple sentence, but a devastating one in the case of the murder at the Soho 54 Hotel in Lower Manhattan, where 2 weeks ago, the body of 38-year-old Queens resident Denise Oleas Arab-Sibia was found in room 1109. A broken iron believed to be the murder weapon after the medical examiner determined she was killed by blunt force.
You guys obviously heard a little bit of that, and you're probably thinking to yourself, why is it that the state of Arizona, why is it that they are taking care of an issue that the city of New York refuses to take care of, or better yet, the city of Phoenix, Arizona, taking care of a problem that New York City should be taking care of? Well, it is because the city of New York has this district attorney named Alvin Bragg. This right here is the guy who goes out of his way to lock up somebody who was obviously protecting people on the subway. This is also the same guy who, how do I say this, tried to lock up a store owner for simply protecting himself. This is a guy who likes to lock up the innocent people, the actual victims of crimes, rather than the actual perps themselves. But don't worry, we'll get to that here in a second. Now, before we get into this story, and obviously you guys saw the first minute there, let me go ahead and say this. This story right here to me is absolutely crazy. And there's also another story coming out of the city that is also just as crazy, if not crazier. But it does show you exactly why it is that New York State is, well, really New York City, is, let's just say, causing problems, not just for New York State, the city itself, the people who live in New York, but also for the rest of the country at large. It's mostly due to these poros district attorneys like Alvin Bragg that are really the biggest part of this. And then, of course, you get people like Letitia James who want to demonize capitalism and have a guy who, quite frankly, did something which, quite frankly, was for the most part legal, pay a massive fine for doing that. Of course, this where also will destroy other businesses in the city, and it will also make the city less profitable or less interesting to invest in it. But I already did a video on that. I want to get to the story here. So basically what's happened is that you have a guy who decided to murder a woman inside the Soho Hotel. Okay, here's the thing. Typically, those who commit murders, they typically tend to get locked up. When they get locked up, they typically tend to go on trial after they've been locked up, unless, of course, they actually plead guilty to what it is that they did. A lot of gray area there, and, of course, a lot of detail that's not being added in. But for the most part, it seems pretty daggone simple. You get locked up, you go to jail. You get locked up, go to jail is really the same thing. You await trial, you wait your sentence, and normally you either go to prison for a set amount of time, maybe 20 to 30 years. In some cases, it's much, much longer depending on the circumstances. And of course, in some states, depending on the brutality of the crime, a lot of times you end up going you end up going to that table where they lay you down and they stick saline in you, then they stick another agent in you, then they stick another agent that finally just kills you. Me personally, I think they should just bring back I can't actually say the actual word itself because of YouTube's terms of service, but let's just say it involves a rope. There are other things that involve, I don't know, maybe beer cans, things that, let's just say that I'm a fan of old school punishment, and yes, that does include things that involve a chair, if that right there makes you, if it actually fills in any details that I'm missing. But the thing about this circumstance here is that it tells people right away that the city of New York is not exactly interested in, let's just say, taking care of their own. So therefore, you have other places like, say, the state of Arizona have to take care of it for you. Now, guys, I want to take you guys back in time before we fully dive into the story. And I promise I'll be very, very brief about this. Do you guys remember the incident involving the two NYPD officers in Times Square who got jumped by about 5 guys who we later on found out were connected to a cartel in Venezuela? I did a video on that recently. Don't worry, I'll leave it in the description box. And come to find out that 2 of those individuals ended up in Arizona where they were arrested, detained, and eventually sent back. I also did a video after that where it was Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks who gave one of those very, very few rare solid takes, but she had something wrong with one of her takes where she said that it's best just to deport these people back, these criminals, when in reality what we should be doing is just deporting everybody back and building a wall and keeping them on the other side, because let's be honest, Mexico is not giving us our best. Venezuela is not sending us their best. And of course, we've also got China, we've got Afghanistan, we've got people coming from all over the place through that border. State of Texas is doing everything they can to secure that border, but still, though, we have an administration that's hell-bent on replacing an entire race of people. And of course, they're starting to realize that they are, in fact, being replaced. I don't know if it's for the right reasons or not, but we'll probably discuss that in a later video. The thing is this right here. The state of Arizona had to arrest these people, and they had to send them back. In this case here, Arizona is basically saying, no, we're not sending them back because we already know that you're just going to let them free. Now, I have to say this before we really and truly get started. The problem with deporting those who are criminals is that they oftentimes find a way to get back into the country. So therefore, it's probably best to just simply go ahead and lock them up. And what I mean by that is this right here. And this right is going to be very controversial to some people out there, but quite frankly, I don't care about the libs. I don't care about pissing them off at all. The thing is this right here. If you are locked up and you are a foreign national, or you are somebody who came across the border, if you are somebody who's trying to suck off the American dream, suck off the American taxpayer, you commit a crime, and let's just say that you, I don't know, maybe kill somebody or something like that there, then maybe what should happen is that you go through trial, you get found guilty. Of course, you should not be allowed the actual procedures that are allowed for those who are actually naturalized citizens here in the United States of America, those who are actually born here. You don't get to go through the appeals process or anything. You just get turned out like that there. Yeah, I said that right there. You don't even get to go through a process because, quite frankly, sending you back is just going to create a problem for us later on. So let's just go ahead and just end it right then and there. Just figure out to go ahead and say it before we go any further. But let's look at the rest of this.
But in an astonishing twist, Arizona officials tonight say they are refusing to extradite al-Mansouri to New York, saying Manhattan's district attorney, Alvin Bragg, cannot be trusted.
Having observed the treatment of violent criminals in the New York area by the Manhattan DA there, Alvin Bragg, I think it's safer to keep him here and keep him in custody.
The statement comes after Bragg's controversial handling of high-profile incidents, including the release of suspects in the case of migrants assaulting NYPD officers in Times Square, even kicking one in the head. As for al-Mansouri, Arizona police say he was arrested Sunday after stabbing a female McDonald's employee multiple times. He's accused of stabbing 2 women in the Phoenix area in his most recent violent spree, and in April kidnapped and sexually assaulted a woman in Florida. But if the refusal to extradite al-Mansouri to New York to face murder charges is rooted in the fear he could walk, some are...
Well, can you blame the city of Phoenix? Can you blame Arizona? They already know that if this guy gets back in New York City, he's never going to get punished. But there's something I need to say here really quick. This video, of course, like some of my other videos, is very clip heavy, and there's a reason for it. You see, guys, I'm showing you a Fox telecast. I'm showing you a Fox report, one that's actually put out by Fox, the local outlet in New York City. There's another one in here that's being put out by CBS. Don't worry, we'll get to that here in a second. But I want you guys to pay very, very close attention to how it is the media reports it on each different outlet. Even the Fox outlet to a certain degree, as you guys are going to see right here in a second, kind of went out of its way to defend the city of New York, which I don't think can be defended at this moment in time, given the fact that a guy who killed a lady, even though she was an escort, say what you want to about her, she's still a daggone person, even though we don't exactly prove what she does. This person here is still, like I said, a person, still a woman, a person, somebody who, quite frankly, for all we know, because we're still waiting on details, may actually have kids somewhere. Of course, somebody lost a daughter, somebody lost a sister. Who the hell knows? Fact of the matter is, this is still a daggone person. You just shouldn't be killing people. Now, granted, what she's doing in the city that she's in, I guess is legal, but still, while you may not approve of it, at the end of the day, it's still a daggone person. The thing is this right here. And this right here is something that still baffles me to this day of how it is that you can just let criminals just straight up walk and not provide any justice or anything. But of course, how the media loves to spin things. Now, it's true that the person who committed this crime does have crimes, or they have been accused of crimes in states like Florida, Texas, and pretty much anywhere else in the country. It's got like 4 or 5 different states this person's committed crimes. So technically, it's really a failure on everyone. But obviously, one state has said, enough with this BS here. We're not sending you back to basically walk
They
free.
haven't charged him with more violent offenses.
Why wasn't an attempted homicide charge recommended in the Phoenix case? Records show the victim was stabbed in the neck, temple, and elsewhere, and he allegedly confessed to wanting to kill her.
Now, the police response to that reporter's question is that al-Masari may still yet face more serious charges, but they're still in the process of collecting evidence. As for Alvin Bragg's office here, the Manhattan DA says in a statement that he finds it incredibly, quote, disturbing that the prosecutor in Arizona is playing, quote, political games with a murder investigation. It's not clear what the next steps are, but it's hard to imagine this is over. That's the latest from here in New York. Go back to you, Andrew.
All right, thank you so much. And it's certainly kind of overshadowing some of the victims here, just this controversy there between the two DAs. And so I'm sure we're going to hear more from our partners in Arizona as well.
Like I said before, this right is a person who obviously should have been locked up, but there are procedures in different states that might have allowed this person to go free. Like, for example, finding out that it was the state of Florida that actually let this person go. I mean, there's something I'm going to be bringing up in the video on Sunday. I plan on doing a video on, let's just say, a follow-up to the whole he gets us thing. And then I plan on doing a video on interviews itself, because I've been seeing a lot of things recently, especially when it comes to my Twitter feed amongst people who want to be influencers, who definitely have bigger channels than myself, who've got this little input about doing interviews with certain controversial figures. It's a bit of a rant that'll be coming out soon, but the thing is this right here. If you guys recall correctly, Ted Bundy, probably America's most notorious serial killer, he escaped Colorado. Somehow or another, he evaded true punishment in Utah. He escaped Washington State, ended up in Florida, and Florida ended up frying him. Sometimes these people have a tendency to get away, and while it is that these people do need to be locked up, and we don't want these people to get away, especially someone like Bundy, who continued to kill after he kept on breaking out of prison, still at the same time, though, somebody at some point in time has got to say enough is enough, and they've got to keep this person locked up. I understand the process, I understand the procedure. But go back to what I said before. If you are an illegal, which we don't really have much information on whether this guy is an illegal or not, it could come out later on that he is. At the same time, I don't think deportation is the best way to go about it. I think you should probably sit here in the United States and just, like I said, I have to snap my fingers because of YouTube's terms of service. I understand how it is. As a matter of fact, this video could still get demonetized regardless. But I want you guys to pay very, very close attention how CBS reports
in a
this.
local murder case, and it's all because officials out west say they don't trust Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg.
Prosecutors in Arizona are refusing to extradite the man accused of killing a woman at a Soho hotel. CBS 2's Elijah Westbrook live in Lower Manhattan, sorting it all out for us this morning. Hi, Elijah.
Hey, good morning, Chris and Mary. Well, the Manhattan DA's office is calling the move unconstitutional and disturbing, even going as far as accusing some of these prosecutors in Arizona of playing political games amid.
I really love how they basically went out of their way to say, look, you know, Alvin Bragg, the district attorney of New York, is trying to make this, or he's trying to say that Arizona is making this political. It's projection. It's, once again, it's the left accusing you of that which they are actually guilty of. In the city of New York, especially the city, they basically lowered the threshold for what you can get away with. And of course, if I remember correctly, the bodega incident, which was really a black eye on Alvin Bragg, but then again at the same time, we should have known this guy was never going to actually enforce the actual laws in the book. You're not even allowed to defend yourself. But yet people who actually commit crimes, people who actually cause actual harm to people, they are practically just getting away with anything. After a while, something is eventually going to happen, and I will say this, even though YouTube may actually get on me for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyways. It's, as I mentioned in a previous video, I wanted to use the death wish example. The reason why I wanted to use the death wish example is because after a while, people do, in fact, get tired of it. And I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but you're probably going to start seeing people start to move towards actually doing something, at least on the ground. If the cops can't defend you, if the cops won't defend you, then obviously people are going to respond to this. But let's watch just a little bit more. Let's go ahead and finish off this last bit.
Games amid a murder investigation. Now, we know that the Maricopa County DA's office is making a rather bold statement. They did this on Wednesday, saying that they will not allow Rahan Masori back to New York until the office has finished prosecuting him. The suspect is currently wanted by authorities here in New York for the death of a woman in a Soho hotel earlier this month. He's currently behind bars in Arizona for alleged crimes he's accused of committing there, but police were able to link him to alleged crimes here. The Arizona DA says she fears Alvin Bragg will release the suspect on bail and that he'll become a...
Having observed the treatment of violent criminals in the New York area by the Manhattan DA there, Alvin Bragg. I think it's safer to keep him here.
Now, a spokesperson from DA Bragg's office has said, quote, "It's a slap in the face to refuse to allow us to seek justice and full accountability for a New Yorker's death."
Well, Alvin, you kind of deserve a backhand to the face. How embarrassed do you have to be if you are the city of New York that your district attorney will not lock up the actual criminals? How embarrassed do you have to be that the state of Arizona, and this is like twice in like the past 2 weeks, has had to bail you out? How embarrassed do you have to be? And I understand that New York City police officers, I understand the NYPD, I understand that most of these guys are actual good guys. The most they can do is simply save your life at the time, arrest the person, apprehend them, lock them up. But if they go in front of the judge and then the district attorney turns right back around and lets these people loose, what the hell do you think is going to happen next? They're eventually going to escape. They're eventually going to do other crimes. They're eventually going to hurt more people, possibly kill more people. That right there is what the hell is going to happen. You have to put these people up. You have to lock them up. You have to put them behind bars. And you have to keep them behind bars. I understand that the taxpayer probably doesn't want excessive amounts of taxes paying for criminals to stay inside certain facilities. But let's go ahead and be honest. You're paying for safety. I get that, and I get it 100%. You're paying for actual safety. I don't mind having additional tax dollars going to prisons to actually keep people locked up, people who, quite frankly, should not be allowed in society. I mean, like I said before, after a while, you're going to start seeing all kinds of other things. For example, you may start seeing gang justice. Well, you may not. It may sound good at first, but after a while, it ain't going to be, how do I say, desirable because of the long-term effects. What happens when regular people decide to go out and start pulling Paul Kersey? Like I said, vigilante activity is probably going to be on the rise very, very soon, especially the worse New York City gets. And here's something else, too, that a lot of people are not considering is that you've also got the subway, and, of course, you've got subway crime. Speaking of that subway and speaking of subway crime, make sure you guys pay attention to the very next 2 minutes.
A man was killed on the D train this morning.
All right, the attack happening just before 5 a.m. as the train was pulling into the 182nd Street stop in the Fordham Heights section of the Bronx.
Fox 8's Richard Jacobs joins us live from the scene with the very latest. Richard?
Natasha, Steve, the MTA president says it was thanks to those surveillance cameras that allowed them to see exactly what unfolded on board that D train. What they do know is who they are looking for tonight. But what they don't know is the 45-year-old who was attacked. Was he stabbed? Was he shot? And why was he a target? These are the 3 suspects wanted in that fatal attack early this morning on a Bronx subway train. 2 men and 1 woman who police say either shot or stabbed a 45-year-old man, killing him.
I just see what's happening in my neighborhood. Been here 20 years. And when I was 15, I was in this neighborhood in the crack epidemic, and it wasn't even this bad.
The D train is once again running at the 182nd and 183rd Street subway station in Fordham Heights. Stood on the southbound platform for the evening commute home. 12 hours earlier, just before 5 a.m., cops say the suspects boarded the train at the Fordham Road station. One of the men is seen on video, say police, sitting down and talking to the soon-to-be victim. Once the train approaches the 182nd Street stop, they begin arguing.
Words are exchanged. They both stand up, and then the words turn physical. And they start physically fighting each other. As they're physically fighting each other, the 2 others, the female and the male that entered the train at Fordham Road, they joined the fight.
Then the train pulls into the station. The suspects run off. The victim was found unconscious and taken to St. Barnabas Hospital where he was pronounced dead. NYPD Transit Chief Michael Kemper says even though this appears to be an isolated incident, this is the 2nd deadly incident in the transit system in 11 days. On February 12th, 1 person was killed and 5 others were wounded in a shooting at the Mount Eden station.
Our cops are out there. They're visible. Our riders, I know they see them. They're riding trains. They're on platforms.
MTA President Janno Lieber insists that with overall crime down this month compared to the same time last year, the subway is safe to ride.
Today, we're not going to tell New Yorkers, don't be
Now, I let that one right there play a little bit longer, just a little over 2 minutes. The reason why is because I wanted you guys to kind of like just kind of capture the whole thing. Obviously, people got killed. There's killers all over the place. I guess this is what's going to happen if you have a district attorney who just continues to let people go. But still, though, when you hear the transit cops then turn right back around, the head of the transit cops come out here and completely undermine what the previous guy said. Yeah, I don't think people got a lot of faith, especially when it comes to the subway itself. And by the way, we already talked about subway crime and why it is. It's going to get a lot worse in the near future. The thing is this right here, New York is an extremely unsafe environment. When you factor in that you have a attorney general for the state of New York who wants to just lock you up or make you pay excessive fines for doing good old-fashioned capitalism, which, by the way, that right there will get appealed. I know they put this provision in saying that the orange man's got to pay all the fine before he can appeal. The problem is now officially a constitutional case because you violated the guy's 8th Amendment. The 8th Amendment, of course, meaning no cruel and unusual punishment and, no excessive bail, no excessive fines or anything like that there, or excessive bail. So that's probably going to get to the Supreme Court here soon anyways. The thing is this right here. This is embarrassing. Now, YouTube, like I said before, they're probably going to demonetize this video and say, look, violation of terms of services. But the thing is this right here. What I'm saying earlier when Alvin Bragg says a slap in our face, yeah, I kind of meant that, and you kind of deserve it. Let me say this really quick to end the video, okay? And as I've said before, you should be embarrassed if you live in the city of New York. I'm not trying to make fun of New Yorkers or anything. I'm just simply trying to say you should be embarrassed if you live in the city of New York and you voted for this guy. I want to say this, all right? There are two different types of people who do bad jobs. And what I mean by they do bad jobs is that they are typically bad at their job, meaning that they're absolutely incompetent. There's guy one who shows up, gets a job, doesn't know what the hell he's doing, or he's incompetent. Now, that guy right there may get fired from a job. He may develop a very, very bad reputation, but said person can go back, look at his mistakes, look at his work ethic, see what the hell's going on. Typically, they tend to try. They're just not good at what they do. And he or she may come back at a later date and actually impress you. They may win you back over. They fix their problems is basically what it is. They fix themselves. Then you got guy number two. Well, guy number two is Alvin Bragg. He is intentionally trying to screw up the job, and now he's just simply projecting. As I've said before, the left always accuse you of that they are guilty of, and this right here is something that the district attorney of New York is definitely guilty of. You got the case you got that case involving the guys who jumped the NYPD officers, who, by the way, ended up in Arizona, and now they're back in New York. And now you've got this situation here where an actual killer was able to get across country. Fact of the matter is that Alvin Bragg is not bad at his job because he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He's bad at his job because he, quite frankly, wants to be bad at his job. And the city of New York and those who voted for this guy should be absolutely embarrassed. But I'm going to save that right there for another time, especially given the fact that this information just came out about an NYPD officer who wanted to steal a bunch of stuff. We'll probably cover that in another video. With that right there being said, guys, please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comment section. I'll see you guys later.